Hi everybody, welcome back to my kitchen here at Little Spoon Farm. I am very excited today to share with you our sourdough country loaf recipe. So this is a recipe that I make more often than not over any other recipe for sourdough bread. And I love it because it just produces this beautiful big loaf that has, you know, that crackly crust, and when you cut it open, you'll see that this crumb is just really nice and even, and it's really easy to work with. So once you've kind of went and made our beginner bread, a sourdough bread recipe a couple of times, I highly suggest, you know, crossing over and maybe trying this one out. Once you have a feel for that dough, you are going to want to experiment with other recipes, and this is one of them. So this is just a little bit more advanced than the first one, but I highly recommend that you give it a try because, like I said, this is what we want. This makes the most delicious toast, grilled cheese sandwiches. It's just delicious dunking into some soup, you know, on a really cold day. So I just know that you're going to love this. Now, this one has sesame seeds on it. I don't have that in the recipe video, but when we are going over the steps, I'll tell you when to add this part if that's something that you'd like. So if you want to learn how to make this, let's get started. The first thing that you're going to want to do is make sure you feed your starter 12 hours prior to mixing your dough. So the first step in this country loaf recipe is autolyse. And we're going to combine 330 grams of water and 100 grams of starter in a bowl and use a spatula or knife to get that well combined. Next, you're going to add 50 grams of whole wheat flour and 450 grams of bread flour. And, you know, again, use your spatula to get that started. And then once those start to come together, you can switch over to your hands. And just all you're trying to do is make sure there's no dry bits left in the bowl, and that way you know all the flour is getting hydrated. So put that aside, and in a small bowl, put the remaining 30 grams of water and 10 grams of salt in a small bowl, and that's going to help that salt to dissolve while the dough is in this autolyse phase. Now during this phase, the dough is just going to sit on the counter, and the flour is going to absorb the water, and the gluten is going to start developing, which is going to make it easier to work with. So after 1 hour, go ahead and take that salt water. I like to stir it up just to make sure it all is dissolved and gets into the bowl. Just add that to your dough, and again, use your hands to work this into the dough. And now you can see that shaggy mess is kind of, you know, got those gluten strands going. So the dough is going to kind of seem like it's breaking apart, but, you know, go ahead and mix this for, it's probably going to take you about a minute. And you can see it's starting to get kind of sticky on my hands, but that's okay. That's what you're looking for. Again, you're just trying to incorporate everything together. So after you have that mixed in really well, then you're going to cover it and let that sit on the counter for another hour. Now it's going to be the start of the bulk fermentation. And right at the beginning, we're going to do a set of 3 stretch and folds. So to do a stretch and fold, you pick up the dough underneath and pull it up and over itself. You can see I'm wetting my hand. This will help prevent the dough from sticking. But you want to be very gentle when you do this. So that's the first set of stretch and folds. You know, cover the bowl, let it sit for 30 minutes, and come back and do the second set. When you are doing the stretch, look how I pull it up just until there's some tension. You don't want to pull it any further than that. You want to be very gentle. And this is where you're going to develop the gluten and the strength and the structure of the dough. And this is going to help you to have that really nice, even and slightly open crumb. So now is the third set of stretch and folds, and you can see that the dough is changing in texture, and it's a lot more volume in it. So this is, again, the third set. And once you finish with this third set, you're going to cover your bowl again, and you're gonna let this sit at room temperature for 2 to 3 hours, depending on the temperature of your kitchen. So at 68 degrees, mine's ready in about 3 hours. Now, what you wanna do is you can put just a really small amount of flour. You don't have to put any flour at all, but you can put a little bit and just very gently use your hands or some kind of scraper to turn the dough out onto your work surface. Now we're going to do what's called the pre-shape, and I like to use a bench scraper for this. Just take it and you're going to use it to work the dough into kind of just a loose ball. You're not trying to create a skin, you're just wanting to gather the dough up and shape it into a ball. And once you've done that, cover that again and let it sit and relax for about 20 minutes. Covered, and then uncover it after 20 minutes is up, and this is going to be our final shape. So lightly flour the top of the dough and then use your bench scraper to turn it over. And we're just going to do 4 folds for our final shape. You can see I'm pulling the side nearest me up into the center, and I'm going to repeat that with the left and right side. And finally, the piece furthest away, I just pull it towards me, and then I roll it seam side down. And then you just twist it until you start to create a skin. And try not to work it too much. You don't want to overwork the dough. And then you're going to want to place this seam side up in a floured banneton. I've already put the flour, dusted this with flour, but I also put some flour on top of the dough just to help to prevent sticking. And if you want to put sesame seeds, this is when you would put that in the bottom of that banneton before you put your dough in so that it sticks. Probably about 2 to 3 tablespoons of just regular sesame seeds. Now flour the outside of that dough to help it to prevent sticking to your bag. And I just use a little plastic bread bag, or you can use any kind of plastic to cover that up. And then stick it in the fridge for up to 12 hours. So when you're ready to bake your bread, you want to put your Dutch oven, I have a Lodge cast iron combo that I like to use for this, in the oven and preheat the oven to 500 degrees. While this is preheating, go ahead and put your dough on the counter so it can sit at room temperature while that's preheating. When it's ready and the oven's ready to go, turn your dough out onto a piece of parchment paper, and then grab the Dutch oven. And so that's ready. Make sure you're using these gloves. These protect your hands and your forearms from getting burnt. They're silicone gloves. So make a cut with a sharp razor in the bread, about a 1/4 inch deep, and then use that parchment paper like a sling to put the bread inside. I like to spritz the top with water, so it helps create a real nice bubbly, crackly crust, and it helps with the oven spring. And then cover the top and place this into your oven. And make sure you turn down the oven to 450 degrees, and you're going to bake this with the cover on for 20 minutes. After that 20 minutes is up, you want to remove the cover and let this bake at 450 degrees for another 25 or 30 minutes, depending on how dark you want your crust. So when it's done, you want to go ahead and take that out and put it on a cooling rack and remove the parchment paper and let that cool for about 2 hours before you cut into it. If you cut into this dough while it is still warm, the moisture, it makes the crumb of the dough very gummy. So wait if you can to slice it open. So that's it. That's how easy it is to make this. I really hope that you give this recipe a try. And if you do, leave a comment down below so that I know how you liked it. You will find a printable recipe on my website, as well as the measurements that you can toggle between metric, which are the grams, and the US customary, which are the cups and tablespoons. So I've made that really easy for those of you that don't want to use a scale to measure your ingredients. So give me a thumbs up if you liked the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.